Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Our first story is titled,
My husband hid my job offer letter. I walked out. This is the story of how my husband's attempt to keep me small led me to heights I never dared to imagine in the past. But I'll try not to get ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. I met Christian during my junior year at Boston University. I was studying marketing, dreaming of Madison Avenue campaigns and Fortune 500 clients. He was a first-year medical student, brilliant and driven, with dreams of becoming a pediatrician. We met at a mutual friend's party where he spent the entire evening asking me about my career aspirations. Marketing strategy fascinates me, I told him over plastic cups of cheap wine. The psychology behind what makes people connect with brands, the storytelling aspect of it all. You light up when you talk about it, he said, smiling. It's beautiful. That was the Christian I fell in love with, the man who seemed to celebrate my ambitions as much as his own. We dated through my senior year and his medical school, planning our futures together. We talked about having it all. Successful careers, a family, a partnership of equals. We married right after my graduation. I had job offers from several marketing firms, but Christian was starting his residency at Massachusetts General Hospital. The salary was minimal and someone needed to keep us afloat financially. It's just temporary, he promised, as I accepted an administrative assistant position instead of my dream job. Once I'm established, it'll be your turn. We're a team. I believed him. For 5 years, I worked administrative jobs, sometimes 2 at once, to support us while he completed his residency. I organized our finances, packed his lunches, and listened to his medical stories late into the night. I was his cheerleader, his support system, his partner. When he finished his residency and joined a prestigious pediatric practice, I thought, finally, my turn. I started applying for marketing positions, updating my resume, networking at industry events. Christian seemed supportive at first, but looking back, I can see the subtle shifts. The house seems messy lately, he'd comment after I spent evenings at marketing seminars. Don't you think children need their mother at home? He'd ask casually over dinner. My colleague's wife stays home. They seem so happy, he'd mention as if by accident. But I pressed on. After 15 interviews and countless applications, things started happening. I had 3 promising leads, all from companies I'd looked up to in the past and would have had my college self drooling over even an internship with. All 3 interviews went exceptionally well. Ella, the marketing director at one of those companies, particularly impressed me. During my final interview, she leaned forward across her desk and said, Skylar, your spec campaign for our healthcare client was brilliant. Where have you been hiding? I laughed, supporting my husband through medical school. But now it's my time. Well, I think you'll be hearing from us very soon, she winked. That was in February. By March, I was checking the mail obsessively. Nothing came. Christian started making comments about starting a family more frequently. You know, he said one morning over breakfast, now that I'm making good money, you don't really need to work. We could start trying for a baby. Christian, we've talked about this. I want to establish my career first. He frowned into his coffee. I just think the timing is perfect now. We're not getting any younger. I'm 29, not 69, I replied. My career matters too. The conversation ended there, but the tension lingered. Then came that Tuesday in March. I was organizing our home office, a space we shared but Christian primarily used. His medical journals and reference books dominated the bookshelves. I was clearing space for my marketing textbooks, when I noticed something behind a row of medical journals. 3 envelopes, all addressed to me, all from marketing firms. My hand shook as I opened the first one, from Ellis Company that I'd interviewed with, dated 3 weeks earlier. We are pleased to offer you the position of Senior Marketing Coordinator with an annual salary of $85,000. The second from yet another marketing company. Your experience and innovative approach to digital marketing align perfectly with our team. The third from an agency I'd had my eye on for a long time. We would be delighted to offer you the position of marketing strategist. All 3 offers had deadlines that had passed. I sat there on the floor of our home office, surrounded by my husband's medical books and my hidden opportunities, feeling like I might throw up. The room spun. 3 job offers, 3 chances at my dreams, all deliberately hidden. The front door opened earlier than usual. Christian was home. "Skylar, you here? I thought we could grab an early dinner." I heard him hanging up his coat, his footsteps approaching the office. I stayed where I was. Letters spread around me like fallen leaves. "There you are. I was thinking we could try that new Italian place." His voice trailed off as he saw what I was holding. "When were you going to tell me?" My voice was barely a whisper. "Skylar, I can explain. Hear me out." "Explain what? How you hid my mail? How you deliberately sabotaged my career opportunities? How you lied to me?" He stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. "I was protecting our future." "Our future?" I stood up, letters clutched in my hand. "You mean your future, your vision of what our life should be." "That's not fair. I just thought..." "No," I cut him off. "You don't get to tell me what's fair. Fair would have been letting me make my own choices. Fair would have been supporting me the way I supported you. I did support you. Who worked while you were in school? Who paid for your degree?" I stared at him, shocked. "I worked my way through college, and then I supported you through medical school. I worked 2 jobs sometimes so you could focus on your studies. When exactly were you supporting me?" "That's different. Medicine is more important than marketing? More valuable than my dreams?" He ran his hands through his hair, that nervous gesture I used to find endearing. Now it just made me angry. "You don't understand. A family needs stability. Someone needs to be home with the children, and it couldn't have been me." "What children, Christian? The hypothetical ones you keep using to justify controlling me?" "I'm not controlling you. I'm trying to build a life with you." "By committing mail fraud? That's a federal offense, by the way. Did you know that?" He paled slightly. "Don't be dramatic. I was going to tell you about them." "When? After the deadlines passed?" "Oh, wait. That already happened. I checked the dates again. 3 weeks. You hid these for 3 weeks." "Skylar, please. Let's just calm down and discuss this rationally." "Rationally? Like how you rationally decided to hide my mail? Or how you rationally tried to manipulate me into giving up my career?" I started gathering the letters, my hands shaking. "How many more are there, Christian? How many other opportunities have you hidden from me?" His silence was damning. "Tell me!" "There might have been a few others over the past year." The room spun again. A year. He'd been doing this for a year. "I need to get out of here." I pushed past him toward our bedroom. "Skylar, wait. Where are you going?" I pulled out my suitcase, the one we'd used on our honeymoon to Hawaii. The memory of that happy time felt like a mockery now. "Skylar, stop. You're overreacting." I started throwing clothes into the suitcase. Overreacting? You stole from me, Christian. You stole my opportunities, my choices, my future. I was trying to protect our future. No, you were trying to control it. There's a difference. I continued packing, my movements mechanical. All those times you asked about my job search, pretending to be supportive, you were just checking to see if I knew about the offers, weren't you? His silence confirmed it. I pulled out my phone and called Anna, my best friend since college. She answered on the second ring. Hey, stranger, how are you? Can I stay with you for a while? I need to get out of my house. There was a pause. Of course. Is everything okay? No, nothing is okay. I'll explain when I get there. I'll make up the guest room. Christian followed me around the house as I gathered my things, alternating between defending his actions and begging me to stay. We can work this out, he kept saying. Don't throw away 8 years over one mistake. One mistake? This was a systematic campaign to keep me dependent on you. How can I ever trust you again? I called Ella at her company from my car. My hands were shaking so badly I had to use the speakerphone. Good afternoon. This is Ella speaking. Ella? This is Skylar. I interviewed with you last month. Skylar! I was so disappointed when we didn't hear back from you. You were our top choice. I took a deep breath. I never received your offer until today. My husband hid it from me. My voice cracked. I know the deadline has passed, but is there any chance? There was a long pause. Let me talk to HR. Can you come in tomorrow morning? Yes, absolutely. 9 a.m. And Skylar, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I spent that first night on Anna's couch curled up under her grandmother's quilt, while my entire life unraveled and reformed. Anna sat with me, pouring wine and listening as I told her everything. I should have seen it coming, I said, staring into my glass. All those little comments about staying home, about starting a family, the way he'd question my late nights at networking events. This isn't your fault, Anna said firmly. She'd known Christian as long as I had. He played the long game, Skylar. He showed you what you wanted to see until he thought he had you locked down. My phone buzzed again. The 20th call from Christian in 3 hours. I silenced it. You know what kills me? I wiped my eyes. I actually believed we were partners, equal partners. Anna snorted. Partners don't commit federal crimes to control each other. I sat up straighter. You're right. This isn't just unethical. It's illegal. Have you thought about pressing charges? Not yet. Right now, I just need to focus on salvaging my career. That night, I barely slept. I researched my legal options, drafted emails to the other companies, and updated my resume. By morning, I had a plan. I arrived at the company at 8:45 a.m., wearing my best interview suit, the one I'd bought secondhand for my original interview. Ella met me in the lobby, her face concerned but professional. HR has agreed to extend the offer, she said as we walked to her office. Same terms, same salary. But Skylar, I need to know, are you sure you're ready for this, given everything that's happening? I met her eyes. Ella, I've been ready for this my entire adult life. What happened with Christian? That's actually why I need this even more. I need to know I can stand on my own. She nodded slowly. Okay, let's talk about your first projects. By noon, I had signed the paperwork. By 1, I had a start date. By 2, I was meeting with a divorce lawyer. Mail theft is a federal offense. The lawyer, an older woman, that had looked more than a little affronted when I told her about the situation, explained. We can use this as leverage in the divorce proceedings. Has he admitted to it in writing? I pulled out my phone, showing her Christian's desperate text messages. I only hid them because I love you. You don't understand. I was protecting our future. Please come home. I'll never hide anything from you again. My new lawyer smiled grimly. This will help. The next few weeks were a blur of beginnings and endings. I started my new job, throwing myself into learning everything I could. I found a small apartment near the office, tiny but mine. I filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and including evidence of the mail theft. Christian's response was relentless. He sent emails, letters, flowers to my office. He showed up at Anna's place so often she had to threaten him with a restraining order. His mom called me at work. "Skylar, this has gone long on enough," she said, her voice stern. "Christian made a mistake, but he loves you. You're throwing away a good marriage." "A good marriage?" I laughed bitterly. "Would you stay with someone who deliberately sabotaged your career?" "He was thinking of your future children, of your family." "No, he was thinking of himself. And so are you." I ended the call. At my new job, I flourished. Years of pent-up ambition and creativity poured out of me. I stayed late, came in early, volunteered for every project I could handle. Ella pulled me aside after I landed our first major healthcare client. "Your campaign was brilliant," she said, "using your understanding of medical professionals to target the messaging. That's exactly why we hired you." I smiled wryly. At least something good came from those years with Christian. 3 months into my new job, I was assigned to lead a team for a major pharmaceutical campaign. The irony wasn't lost on me, using my knowledge of the medical world gained during my marriage to advance my own career. The divorce proceedings moved forward. Christian finally stopped fighting when my lawyer mentioned federal prosecution for mail theft. In the end, I got a clean break and kept my retirement savings. A small victory, but mine. 6 months into my new life, I was promoted to marketing team lead. My team's healthcare campaigns were bringing in record numbers. I had my own office, smaller than my apartment, but with a view of the Boston skyline. One evening, working late, I found myself staring at a photo I still kept in my desk drawer. Christian and me on our wedding day. We looked so young, so happy, so naive. Ella knocked on my door. "Skylar, the Q4 numbers are in. Your department did exceptionally well, again." I smiled, putting the photo away. The healthcare campaign really resonated. It did, the board noticed. They are talking about fast-tracking you for senior management. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the city lights. You know, when I interviewed here, I was so worried about my career gap, all those years working administrative jobs while Christian finished his residency. Sometimes the long road teaches us the most valuable lessons. Ella sat down across from me. "Speaking of which, how are you doing? Really?" I considered the question. "I'm good. Really good. For the first time in years, I'm exactly where I should be." "Have you heard from him?" "Not since the divorce was finalized. His mother still sends me guilt trip emails, though." Ella shook her head. "You know, I see a lot of women come through here. Too many of them have similar stories. Partners who held them back, who made them think small." "That's why I started the mentorship program," I said. The mentorship program was my pet project, connecting experienced women in marketing with newcomers to the field. We met monthly, sharing stories, strategies, and support. During our last meeting, one of the mentees asked me about work-life balance. "How do you know when to prioritize career over relationship?" I thought about those hidden letters, about years of dimming my light to make someone else shine brighter. "You prioritize the relationships that help you grow," I said finally, "and you walk away from the ones that ask you to shrink." The next morning, I had a surprise visitor in my office, a stern-faced young woman. the client from our successful healthcare campaign. I heard you're starting a women's mentorship program, she said. I'd like to partner with you, expand it to women in medicine. And, just like that, something beautiful grew from the ashes of my marriage. A year after finding those hidden letters, I was named Director of Healthcare Marketing. I've been holding on to that position ever since then, and things were going as well as they could be, which is exceptionally well. From what I've heard, I'm being considered for another raise if this year can end on a high note. Of course, that's not the only update I have for you. Just last week, I ran into Christian at our old coffee shop. He looked older, tired. He was with a woman, pretty, young, wearing scrubs. "Skylar," he said, looking uncomfortable, "you look successful." "I am." I turned to the woman. "Hi, I'm Skylar." "The doctor's ex-wife?" she asked, then blushed. "Sorry, I've heard." "It's okay," I said. "Don't worry about it." Christian shifted uncomfortably. "Skylar, I'm sorry for everything." I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I'd love, who tried to keep me small. He seemed smaller now himself. "I hope you've learned from it," I said quietly. "She deserves better than what you did to me." I nodded to his companion. Walking back to my office, I felt light, free. The woman who'd let someone dim her light to make himself shine brighter was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who knew her worth. That evening, I sat in my corner office looking out at the Boston skyline. On my desk was a framed quote I put there my first week. "The only person who can hold you back is you." My phone buzzed. A text from Ella. "Board meeting tomorrow. Time to discuss your vision for the company's future." I smile as I look back at it, thinking through my routine. Gathering my things, making sure all the files are where they need to be, checking up on the digital progress of the day. The future is bright, and this time, no one can hide it from me. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead us exactly where we need to be. Sometimes what looks like an ending is really a beginning. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose ourselves. Here are my thoughts about the story. I am 5 seconds away from having to take a walk after reading this one. Like I'm sitting here recording and I need a minute to process this. You know, those stories that just hit different. This is one of them. First off, can we talk about how this Christian dude literally committed a federal crime thinking he was being a protective husband? The audacity, my friends, the audacity is absolutely crazy. But what really got me wasn't just the male hiding, it was the slow burn of how he methodically tried to dim this woman's light. Like, my guy really spent years playing the long game, acting supportive while low-key sabotaging her entire future. I've seen some toxic relationship stories while reading stories for this channel, but this one, there's something especially messed up about someone who claims to love you while actively working to keep you small. It's like emotional waterboarding, but make it a marriage. But here's what really stuck with me. Skylar's transformation wasn't just about getting a better job or making more money. It was about reclaiming her power. You guys all notice how she went from making excuses for working admin jobs to running whole departments? That's not just career growth. That's someone remembering who they were always meant to be. And can we appreciate the irony of how she used her knowledge from being married to a doctor to absolutely crush it in healthcare marketing? My girl really said, "Thanks for the industry insights. I'll take it from here." That's what I call a plot twist, and taking what you can from an otherwise horrific situation. The part that had me shaken up was when she ran into Christian at the coffee shop with his new girlfriend. The way Skylar handled that. Chef's kiss. No dramatics, no scene, just pure, "I hope you've learned from it." That's not just growth. That's pure capable adult maturity. Listen, I've read hundreds of stories on this channel, but this one hits differently because it's not just about a bad marriage or career success. It's about how sometimes the people closest to us can be the ones holding us back, and they'll do it while convincing themselves and us that it's for our own good. Real talk, though, this story made me look at my own relationship differently. Not just romantic ones, but friendships, family, all of it. It got me thinking about all the little ways we sometimes let people clip our wings because we're afraid of rocking the boat. The craziest part, I bet there are a lot of people out there living this story right now. Like how many talented folks are sitting in their living rooms right now, letting someone convince them that their dreams are impractical or that they should be realistic. Guys, if you take anything from this story, let it be this. Anybody who tries to dim your light ain't trying to protect you. They're trying to control you. And sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to grab your light and bounce.
And now, guys, we will move on to the second story of the video. Please like the video if you have enjoyed it so far. The story starts like this.
My husband let his friend live with us rent-free. I served an eviction notice. I never thought I'd be in a position where I had to legally evict someone from my own home, especially not my husband's best friend. But after 6 months of having an unwanted house guest who showed no signs of leaving, I had reached my breaking point. Looking back now, I realize it was the wake-up call I desperately needed. This isn't just a story about kicking out an unwanted house guest. It's about finding my voice, rediscovering myself, and learning that sometimes marriage means difficult times and difficult choices. It all started last September when I came home from a grueling 12-hour shift at the hospital. As an ER nurse, I'm used to chaos, but nothing prepared me for what awaited me at home. Our normal, peaceful living room looked like a storage unit had exploded, with boxes and duffel bags scattered everywhere. Male laughter echoed from our spare bedroom. "Honey, you're home," my husband, Lee, called out, emerging with his college buddy, Tyler, trailing behind him. "Look who's here." I forced what I hope was a convincing smile, while my stomach tied itself in knots. Tyler had been a fixture in our lives since college, but not always in a good way. At 35, he was still living like a freshman, jumping from job to job, relationship to relationship, always with some new scheme that was supposedly going to make him rich. "Tyler's going through a rough patch," Lee explained, his arm around his friend's shoulders. "His girlfriend kicked him out, and he needs a place to stay for a few weeks while he gets back on his feet. I told him he could use our spare room." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "You what? When did you decide this?" "Just today," Lee replied casually. "He called this morning and I couldn't just leave him hanging. What kind of friend would I be?" Tyler gave me what he probably thought was a charming smile. "I really appreciate it, Vivian. It'll just be for a little while. I promise. 2 weeks, tops." I should have trusted my instincts, should have put my foot down right then and there, but I was exhausted, caught off guard, and still operating under the mistaken belief that my husband would respect my feelings if I expressed them later in private. "Right," I managed to say. "Well, I need a shower. Can we talk about this later?" That night, after Tyler had settled into the spare room, I confronted Lee in our bedroom. "You should have discussed this with me first," I said, keeping my voice low to avoid being overheard. "This is my home, too." Lee gave me that boyish grin that made me fall in love with him 10 years ago. "Come on, Vivian, it's just a couple of weeks. Tyler's like brother to me. I couldn't just leave him out in the cold." "Does he have a plan?" I pressed. "A job lined up? Savings? Anywhere else he could go?" He's got some promising leads, Lee assured me. And he's been working on this amazing business idea involving cryptocurrency. I couldn't help but groan. Not another get-rich-quick scheme. This one's different, Lee insisted. He's really done his research this time. You should hear him talk about blockchain technology. I held up my hand to stop him. Lee, the last time Tyler had a sure thing, he lost $5,000 trying to start a drop shipping business selling holistic pet supplements. That was different. He was young then. That was 8 months ago. The next few weeks felt like living in a fraternity house. Tyler treated our home like his personal crash pad, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. Dirty dishes piled up in the sink, wet towels festered on the bathroom floor, and somehow every surface became sticky with spilled energy drinks. Our grocery bill doubled, then tripled. Tyler had an endless appetite and expensive taste, always helping himself to whatever was in the fridge. Yet, whenever I mentioned splitting costs, he'd launch into elaborate explanations about how his crypto investments were about to moon and he'd pay us back tenfold. The 2-week promise stretched into a month, then 2. Every time I brought it up with Lee, he'd have a new excuse. His job interview got pushed back. The crypto market is just about to turn around. He's waiting to hear back about a partnership opportunity. Meanwhile, our once peaceful home became party central. I'd come home from night shifts to find Tyler and his friends sprawled across our living room, playing video games and drinking beer at 7 a.m. Lee would just shrug it off, saying, "They're just blowing off steam." The breaking point came gradually, then all at once. It wasn't just the mess or the noise or the money. It was watching my marriage slowly crumble under the weight of this unwanted house guest. One night, after finding our kitchen ransacked and my meal prepped, lunches eaten, I tried reasoning with Tyler directly. "Look," I said, cornering him in the kitchen, "this isn't working. You need to start contributing or make plans to move out." Tyler barely looked up from his phone. "Oh, hey, Vivian, did you see this new NFT project I'm investing in? It's going to be huge." "Tyler, I'm serious. It's been almost 3 months." He finally looked at me, his expression oddly patronizing. "Listen, I get that you're stressed from work and everything, but Lee understands my situation. Maybe you should talk to him about your concerns." The way he said it made my blood boil. The subtle manipulation, the way he positioned himself between Lee and me, knowing exactly how to exploit their friendship. That night, I tried one final time to reason with Lee. "This has to end," I said. "Tyler's taking advantage of us, and it's destroying our marriage." Lee was sprawled on our bed, scrolling through his phone. "You're exaggerating. He's just going through a rough patch." "A rough patch?" I laughed bitterly. "Lee, he's been going through a rough patch since we met him in college. At some point, it's not a patch anymore. It's just who he is." "You don't understand male friendship," Lee said dismissively. "We look out for each other." "And what about looking out for me?" I asked. "For us. When's the last time we had a date night that didn't turn into a group hang with Tyler? When's the last time we had some quality time together without hearing him gaming through the walls?" Lee's face reddened. "So, that's what this is about? You're jealous because I'm spending time with my friend? Jealous?" I felt like I'd been slapped. "I'm not jealous. I'm exhausted. I'm tired of being a hotel manager in my own home. I'm tired of working 12-hour shifts saving lives only to come home and find my food eaten, my house trashed, and my husband defending the person responsible." "You're being dramatic," Lee said, turning back to his phone. "Tyler's family. No, I said quietly. I'm your family, or at least I thought I was. The next week, I consulted a lawyer. I learned that despite Tyler not paying rent or having a formal lease, he'd established residency by staying with us for over 30 days. We'd need to serve him with proper notice to legally evict him. I didn't tell Lee about my plans. Maybe that was wrong, but I knew he'd warned Tyler, and I couldn't risk giving him time to dig in deeper. The lawyer helped me draft the notice, and I served it to Tyler myself one morning while Lee was at work. Tyler's face when he read the paper was almost comical. "This has to be a joke," he said, waving the notice. "Lee would never allow this." "Lee isn't the only owner of this house," I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "You have 30 days to find new accommodation." "We'll see about that," Tyler sneered, pulling out his phone. I knew he was calling Lee. The fight that followed when Lee came home was explosive. He burst through the door, face red with anger. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted. "You went behind my back to evict my best friend?" "What's wrong with me?" I shot back. "I tried talking to you for months. You dismissed every concern, every complaint. You chose Tyler over our marriage again and again." "That's not fair. He needed help to get back on his feet." "And what about what I needed?" My voice cracked. "I needed my husband. I needed my partner. Instead, I got two overgrown teenagers treating me like their mother." The argument lasted for hours. Lee oscillated between anger, guilt-tripping, and pleading. But for the first time in our marriage, I stood my ground. The eviction notice stayed. The next 30 days were hell. Tyler turned openly hostile, making snide comments whenever we crossed paths. He started playing music at full volume during my sleep hours between shifts, claiming he forgot about my schedule. Things disappeared from my personal belongings. Nothing valuable enough to prove theft, but enough to let me know it was intentional. Lee barely spoke to me. He spent most of his time in the spare room with Tyler, planning their next moves. I overheard them late at night, their voices carrying through the walls. "She's changed, man. She's not the same person I married. You can crash at my new place once I get set up." On day 29, I came home to find the spare room empty. Tyler had moved out, taking our spare TV, Lee's gaming console, and several other items with him. He'd left a note. "Thanks for the hospitality, Vivian. Hope it was worth it." But the real blow came 2 days later. I woke up to find Lee's side of the bed empty and a note on his pillow. "Staying at Tyler's new place for a while. Need space to think." The house felt enormous and empty. I sat in our kitchen, my kitchen now, and tried to remember the last time Lee and I had eaten breakfast together, just the two of us. Had it been before Tyler moved in? Before that? Weeks passed. Lee would come by occasionally to pick up clothes or mail, always when he knew I'd be at work. Tyler had blocked me on all social media, and through mutual friends I heard they'd gotten an apartment together. Just until Tyler gets back on his feet, people said, but I knew better now. The separation lasted 3 months before Lee moved back home, but things were different now. The easy intimacy we'd once shared had been replaced by something brittle and cautious. We moved around each other like strangers, sharing the same space, carefully polite but distant. "I miss you," I said one night, watching him eat dinner alone in front of the TV. A new habit he developed. He glanced up briefly. "I'm right here." But he wasn't, not really. Tyler's absence had left a void that neither of us knew how to fill. Lee still saw him regularly, but never brought him to the house. Their hangouts became a source of unspoken tension. Lee would come home late, smelling of beer and takeout, and I'd pretend to be asleep. Our therapist called it a loyalty conflict. Lee felt torn between his marriage and his oldest friendship, unable to fully commit to either. I'd won the battle over our living situation, but the cost had been steep. I don't regret making him leave, I told our therapist during one session, but I regret what it's done to us. Lee stared at his hands. I just don't understand why you couldn't have tried harder to get along with him. The old anger flared, but I swallowed it down. We'd had this argument too many times already. Slowly, in the vacuum left by our marital strain, I began to rediscover myself. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned years ago: painting, yoga, writing. I joined a book club and made new friends who had nothing to do with Lee or our shared past. My shifts at the ER became a refuge rather than an escape. I threw myself into my work, earned a certification in trauma nursing, and started mentoring new staff. For the first time in years, I felt like more than just Lee's wife or Tyler's reluctant hostess. Lee noticed the changes, though he rarely commented on them. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me with a puzzled expression, as if trying to reconcile this new version of me with the woman he'd married. "You seem different," he said one evening, finding me reading on the porch instead of watching TV with him. "I am different," I replied. "We both are." He nodded slowly. "Tyler asks about you sometimes." "What did you tell him?" "That you're doing well." A pause. "Are you?" "I've thought about it. I'm doing better. Not necessarily well, but better. Our marriage survived, but like a bone that heals slightly crooked, functional but forever changed, we learned to navigate around the sore spots, develop new patterns and rhythms. Date nights became sporadic rather than weekly, and conversations stayed safely in the shallow end of the emotional pool. Sometimes I wondered if we were just going through the motions, too scared or too stubborn to admit defeat. Other times, usually when Lee would absently reach for my hand during movies or bring home my favorite coffee without being asked, I'd catch glimpses of the couple we used to be. Tyler remained a ghost in our relationship, unspoken but ever present. Lee never brought up letting him visit, and I never asked about their time together. It was an uneasy truce, held together by the shared understanding that some bridges, once burned, leave permanent scars on both sides. A year after the eviction, I ran into Tyler at the grocery store. He looked older, more worn. We shared an awkward nod before hurrying in opposite directions. Later, I told Lee about it. "He's still struggling," Lee said quietly. "The crypto thing didn't work out." I waited for the guilt to come, but it didn't. "I hope he figures things out," I said, and meant it. He reached across the kitchen counter and squeezed my hand. A peace offering, perhaps, or an acknowledgement of how far we'd come and how far we still had to go. We weren't the same couple who'd welcomed Tyler into our home that September day. Maybe we would never be again, but we were still here, still trying, still choosing each other every day, despite the cracks and strain. Sometimes I thought that had to be enough. Luckily, though, things didn't stay that way. The following spring brought unexpected changes. Lee got promoted at work, which meant longer hours and more responsibility. In an odd way, the distance helped. We both had less energy to maintain the tension that had become our default state. One night, after a particularly exhausting shift, I found him sitting in the dark on our back porch. He had a beer in his hand and was staring at his phone. "Tyler's getting married," he said, without looking up, "to some girl he met at a crypto conference. They've been dating for 2 months. I sat down beside him, unsure what response he was looking for. "Are you going to be his best man?" "He hasn't asked." Lee's voice was hollow. We're not as close anymore. The wedding's in Vegas next weekend. The old Lee would have dropped everything to be there, probably emptying our savings to throw Tyler an extravagant bachelor party. This Lee just took another sip of his beer. You could go, I offered, surprising myself. If you want to. He shook his head. I don't think I should. We sat in silence for a while, the cricket chorus filling the space between us. Finally, Lee spoke again. You were right about him, about a lot of things. He turned the beer bottle in his hands. I just couldn't see it because I was so used to being the person who fixed his problems. It was part of my identity, you know? Lee and Tyler, the dynamic duo. Tyler screws up, Lee bails him out. And now? Now I'm just Lee. He gave a weak laugh. Turns out that's harder than I thought it would be. That night marked a subtle shift in our marriage. The tension didn't disappear, but it began to transform into something more manageable. We started having real conversations again, albeit cautiously. I told him about my promotion to charge nurse, and he actually listened instead of just nodding along. He shared his frustrations about his new role at work, admitting that sometimes he felt overwhelmed. Small steps, but significant ones. We still had separate lives in many ways. Lee had his work friends. I had my book club. He spent some weekends gaming online, though never with Tyler, while I took art classes at the community center. Our romantic life was sporadic and sometimes awkward, but we were trying. The following Christmas, Lee's mother asked about Tyler during family dinner. Such a shame what happened, she said, shooting me a pointed look. You boys were like brothers. I felt Lee tense beside me, waiting for the familiar argument to resurface. Instead, he surprised us both. Sometimes brothers need to grow up and grow apart, he said firmly. Pass the potatoes, Mom. Later that night, as we got ready for bed, I caught him looking at an old photo on his phone. Him and Tyler at college graduation, arms around each other's shoulders, grinning like they owned the world. Do you regret it? I asked softly, choosing me. Lee was quiet for a long moment. I regret that I had to choose it all. I regret not setting boundaries years ago. I regret letting things get so bad that you had to be the bad guy. He put the phone down. But no, I don't regret choosing you. It wasn't perfect. We still had days when the strain showed, when the ghost of what happened hung heavy between us. Lee still got quiet when mutual friends mentioned Tyler's name. I still felt the twinge of resentment when I found Lee deleting Tyler's texts without responding. But we were learning to carry these imperfections together, to accept that maybe a marriage didn't have to be perfect, to be worth fighting for. We were building something new from the ruins of what had broken. Not better or worse, just different. And sometimes on quiet evenings, when we managed to just be together without the weight of the past pressing down, I caught glimpses of a future where these scars might fade, if never fully heal. A future where we could be Lee and Vivian again, changed but still standing, still choosing each other despite everything. It wasn't the happy ending I'd imagined when we first got married, but maybe it was something more valuable, a hard-won peace, a tested love, and the knowledge that we were strong enough to weather the storms, even if we emerged a little battered and bruised. Here are my thoughts about the story. Can we talk about how perfectly this captures that slow-motion train wreck feeling? I mean, the moment Tyler walked in with his boxes and that fake charming smile, I was already ready to yell at a microphone like, "Girl, run!" But that's the thing about real life. You can't just run. It's your home, your marriage, your whole life wrapped up in this mess. The part that really got me was how the husband, Lee, wasn't even portrayed as this terrible villain. He's just human. Frustratingly, infuriatingly human. We all know that one person who can't let go of a toxic friendship because it's been part of their identity for so long. Hell, I've probably been that person at some point. And Vivian, I feel like I aged 10 years just reading about her journey. The way she describes coming home from saving actual lives at the ER only to find her food eaten and her house trashed. I wanted to reach to my screen and give her a hug while simultaneously hiring her a moving company. But here's what really stuck with me. The ending isn't this neat little bow where everything gets fixed. They stay married, yeah, but it's messy and uncomfortable and real. That line about being like a bone that heals slightly crooked, that's some poetry right there, and it's so accurate it hurts. The part about Tyler getting married in Vegas just sent me, though. 2 months of dating? My guy really never changed, did he? He's still making those impulse decisions, still living like he's 19. Meanwhile, Lee's sitting there having this existential crisis about his identity, and I'm just like, yes, dude, welcome to the adult table. Finally. And can we appreciate Vivian's growth? She went from being this accommodating wife who couldn't even stand up to her husband's mooching friend to becoming someone who rediscovered herself. The art classes, the book club, the career advancement. She really said, fine, if my marriage is going to be strained, I might as well level up my own life. I get the feeling that some of you might be typing up a comment about how she should have left Lee. And look, I get it, but I think what makes this story so powerful is that it shows how sometimes the harder choice is staying and working through the mess. It's easy to say, just leave from the outside, but real life is complicated, and love is complicated, and sometimes you choose to rebuild even when it would be easier to walk away.
Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.